Every business starts with some sort of a spreadsheet, but at some point it starts becoming a bottleneck rather than being helpful. And this is exactly what happened to one of my clients. When I joined their team, we were dealing with lots of spreadsheets and a lot of data, a lot of merges. And we had to basically take a lot of data from different spreadsheets and consolidate them into one major spreadsheet. So what's wrong with that? That seems like a common practice that happens at every place, right? Well, it is, but unfortunately what happens a lot of times is that some of the data doesn't always make it over to the spreadsheet, and now you have misalignment in the data. And the timing is always really horrible too. It's when you need the spreadsheet the most, you realize that someone has added extra columns, or worse, deleted some of the sheets in the spreadsheet. And now we're stuck with trying to figure out what happened, what data is accurate, what data is reliable to even report on. But the problem is we end up doing the same thing over and over. But if you're not doing quick reports and analysis, is Excel really the best tool to store your data and share your data amongst your company? This is one of the questions I've been wanting to answer for a very long time, because my technical background tells me that we should be storing all this data in a database. But the business side of me tells me using a database can be very, very complex, especially if you don't know SQL and you don't know how to query the data. Also, how do you input the data if there's not a user-friendly interface? So my client and I, we worked together to figure out the best solution. And it's something that I have actually explored in the past. So what we decided to build was a database, but with a user-friendly interface, where it looks like a grid similar to a spreadsheet, and it has very similar functionality to Excel, so people can still use it very easily. You don't have all these data standardization issues and misalignment issues later down the line. The data is always current. You don't have to save a spreadsheet with a date at the end of it and a version and your initials to know which report and which version you're working with. So we decided to build a database with a friendly UI. So it seems familiar to all the spreadsheet users and business users who are not very technical, but at the same time, you get all the benefits of a database underneath the hood. And we rolled it out on our phase 1, and turns out everyone really loved it and they want more of it. They want other spreadsheets to also go into a database. So huge success. But the question is, how can you implement this in your business? Well, the good news is we have a lot of low code and no code tools out there now that are basically a database underneath with a user-friendly interface on top. And you can make columns and tables very easily. And there's even lots of different views available. If you want to have a form view where you can put all your data in one place and it just goes to whichever table that needs it. So it becomes very user-friendly, very easy to use. Or if you want a little bit more control, then you can also just go edit on the grid view. These tools also have a lot of automations built into it. So when you update one row, and if you want another row to automatically get updated, then you can have that type of automation in place. You also want your users to get notified when you enter a new data point. There's that too. This has made the data collection process so much faster and optimized because people don't have to spend time merging things and checking and fixing errors. And a huge advantage we've gotten out of it is the data standardization. So our data quality has increased tremendously. So which database tool is the best one, and which one do I recommend? That's going to depend. I've been developing on several different databases, and there are some important differences you should know, especially if you want to know whether you should want a cloud host or if you want to self-host. A lot of the clients that I work with, they're a little bit more data privacy focused, and there are regulations about where the data is stored that they have to be mindful of. So we typically go with the self-hosted solution. I've personally used Airtable in the past to build some of my AI-powered apps, and it's been great. It has a lot of features. But one of the issues I found was the pricing can kind of get expensive, especially as you start to add some of the additional features and your data starts to grow. So I personally tend to stay away from the cloud-only databases like Airtable and SmartSuite. I like to self-host my own. This way I can have hundreds and thousands of rows and I have access to the database in the backend. This way I can query the database directly and I can extract the data. I always have the data, even if I cancel a subscription. The data lives in my own servers, so I can access it and I can send it over to a data warehouse for analytics purposes. So there are lots of different things depending on your needs. Some features you might care about, like audit logs, some features you might not care about. I've put together another video where I go deep down. Check that video out next, and I will see you there.